What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Doodads Podcast. I'm me, it's not gonna hurt your family. Comment if you like the videos. Comment, say he, put an emoji, do some silly stuff. Let us know what you might want to hear us talk about. You know, we're gonna have some guests and stuff on, but it's very helpful when we know and we have some direction and we can give people what they want. And so do that. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all the social medias, and if you do Spotify, it should be right under the Joe Rogan Experience when you search podcasts on Spotify.
Because the Dad's Podcast and Joe Rogan are.
Yeah, dude. Most dad bros listen to the JRE, but
absolutely.
But also too, if you're following along, go ahead and share. Whether it's, sharing it on Facebook, sharing the reels, however all that kind of stuff works. I'm from the era where you had to have a .edu to get you a Facebook account. Now it's all filled with old people,
I'm from the era where we had to
I remember dial-up. I remember, you only had unlimited nights and weekends and all that stuff. But, today is... we've gotten through the first kind of little, this is who we are episodes, about what is this podcast, who are you, who am I, we kind of pulled the covers off of some of our secrets, not all of them because I don't know if our wives would approve of that, but, I think tonight we kind of just... We're going to kind of run it. One thing I will say, and I will point out and may kind of lead us into some conversation. There was a poll that was run on our YouTube page, and if you didn't see it, go vote on it. There was a lot of people that voted on that poll. It was 4 people.
Oh, yeah.
4 people.
Solid numbers.
And 3 of those 4 people, which is 75%. And from where I'm from, 75%, that's... You're getting paid, and so 75% of people wanted to hear us talk about being a dad in 2024, which we both are. And so, maybe we can kind of touch on some of those things, some things that come to mind. I know we kind of talked about some potential topics. I wanted to kind of make a mention of something that, let's do this first. How was y'all's weekend? How was y'all's week? Did Ben pee? Did Ben poo? Did we have any update there in the?
No, we're still holding fast. We're still we're trying to get in the regular routine of using the potty, and he's he's doing pretty good. But he's a terrorist right now. Like 3, man. He just unreal. Like I don't know. It was a good weekend. Real tired, trying to play catch up, driving back and forth to Lafayette for this job, and
yeah.
No, weekend was good. Went to an engagement party.
Congratulations,
to
them.
Shug,
shout out, my boy.
shout out to
the dog.
And then we had a little birthday party for a friend and
nice.
Her daughter, so went over there.
Nice.
Yeah, not much, man.
That's good. That's good. I my buddy that I was in the Marine Corps with texted me this morning, and he said he had just gotten started on episode 3, and that he has bribed his children with trips to Disney World for potty training, and I think Mickey Mouse is still lonely. Based on the results that he gave me, I don't think that they've made that trip quite yet. So, dude, I caught some flack for the you sit down when you pee.
From who?
From guys with large egos. is who, and I won't say in particular, but we do have a mutual friend who, Mark, bleep his name out, please.
Mark.
Frank. Frank said, "Oh, that shit's way easier, dude." You know, I definitely agree. But anyway,
So Frank was in agreement.
yeah, for sure. So
Yeah. Well, I don't. I mean,
I don't know.
I will try my best to find ways to empathize and be compassionate
Yeah.
for any guy who watches this podcast and has any sort of cynicism or negativity. Because look, if you want, towel whipping and, balls to the wall, childish humor, like I can get there.
Sure.
But, maybe I was talking about it a little bit before. I got a call from a friend of me and Courtney's, and this little girl, we've known her for a while, and she moved up to the East Coast, and she called me today, actually, and we were talking, and she was like, "I just wanted to tell you I love you, like I really appreciate what you're doing, yada, yada, yada." And of course, we went down this long rabbit hole of, I mean, dude, look, like I said in episode 2, and I'm sure you tried to on episode 3, like I think we do our best to try to preface everything with like, hey man, I'm not living in the Dominican Republic in a third world country, right?
Right.
I'm not, I didn't get like beat hysterically or, whatever. And this girl has some like major family trauma, like some major, like some stuff that would just, it makes you want to go home and hug your kids.
Yeah.
And so when I hear some guy or whatever who's like, because we're laughing at ourselves, and that's the whole thing, right? Don't take
Exactly.
yourself too seriously, and realize like how lucky and blessed we are to even be in this position. And then all of a sudden somebody wants to turn around and say like, oh, that's kind of weird. That's kind of, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I don't know, but dude, like people go through stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like people go through shit that like you couldn't even like for a day. And this girl, I've seen her even through her best efforts, sometimes trying to blow it up, make her so she's in construction right now. She's part of a union. She's getting asked to talk to, these middle school kids and stuff about like what it's like to be a female in the workforce and all that. And like, this is a young lady who, man, has every reason to give up. So when, again, like, some dude wants to make fun of you or me or anybody, or even this little project of ours, I'm gonna just try to have compassion for him because, dude, like,
well, and like, I think that again, like some more of the motivation behind even doing this is that like, and
like who hurt you?
Well, right. And like, also like, if you and I are the only two and that experience these things and deal with what we deal with, then we are in our own little world. And at least there's only 2 of us. We should be able to figure it out.
And thank God there's only 2 of us, everybody else got it figured out. Good deal.
Good for the, so one of the things I was kind of thinking about over the weekend that I kind of wanted to bring up and get your thoughts and kind of put out there a little bit. I think we're on the same page here when I say this. I don't think that our intent was to become dadfluencers or any type like this. The intent behind this was to talk about and bring to light our experiences as just regular dads, as normal, well, semi-normal, borderline normal guys in today's world that are trying to raise children and trying to like be somewhat successful in doing so. And I was looking through social media, and this is not a knock at anybody who does this whatsoever. This is my opinion, and this was kind of what I experienced over the weekend. But there's a handful of different men and dads, husbands on social media that, they're posting videos like making doing these freaking, 3 tents and balloon, like pancakes in the shape of Bluey and all this kind of stuff. And like, it makes me in a sense feel insignificant and like inadequate at times as a dad, when just like anything else on social media does to people, it makes women feel insecure. It makes chubby dudes and skinny dudes not feel strong. But like, that to me was a sign from the universe that like, this is a cool thing that we're doing, because I watch that and I go, that's a really good idea, but I've got a shit ton of work I got to do this week just to even be able to buy pancake mix to make the pancakes in the first place. And I think that sometimes that can kind of get misrepresented, and people, and myself included, don't really understand and grasp the fact that all of these things are being done, whether it's a dad or a mom, any kind of parent, they're getting paid for it. Like you got 2.1 million followers, like you're getting paid to make Bluey pancakes, like my life isn't that. And I think that was kind of part of our goal in doing this, is to get to kind of like speak for the dads whose lives aren't situated.
The real question is if this were to take off and now all of a sudden you have 2.1 million followers, are you going to be making Bluey pancakes? And I mean that seriously.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good question, because
Gary V. Vaynerchuk, if you're listening and you ever want to come on this show, but he talks about that. He says, you start, a podcast, you start a media business, you whatever your shtick is, and you see that person and they have 1 million views, and you go like, what? And it's like, yeah, they popped overnight.
Right.
And that's what you see, but you don't see the years that they might have dedicated putting out content that never hit.
Yeah.
And then this one hits, and it's like, I try to remember that whatever I see on any social media, and look, and this isn't a shot. This is just reality from where I'm sitting. I can tell you, and look, we're dads pretty much on the same trajectory, right? Like both kids 3+ years old. I happen to have a stepdaughter, but like the reality is like we're both on the same trajectory. I'm 11 years ahead of you.
Right.
And so I got 11 more rotations on this rock of looking at people and judging my like insides by their outsides, by being disappointed by stuff, by thinking, man, I'm a shit dad, or I'm a terrible partner, or I'm a no good friend, or whatever, because I'm seeing all this stuff. And like, here's the reality, man. Like, and to quote Gary V again, like, they wet the bed once too.
Very true.
Like, dude, like when I started realizing, like, because for all 112 of you that have subscribed, I know that there are going to be tons that disagree, think that we're ridiculous, think whatever, that are going to, think that we're putting on a show. And like, I can guarantee you, if you want to sit down, like, I got the receipts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I am, by all intents and purposes, a scoundrel in a lot of ways. I've made a mess of my life. I've made a mess of my life plenty times over. There's some things that I can't fully write because the people don't want me to ever try to write it. They just would rather, and that's okay. Like, I still have the door open with compassion, and because I go back to like when my mom died, like literally that moment made me realize what was precious and what was important to me.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's the fact that like when I was on a Zoom call with some buddies. I was picking her up from her little tutoring tonight, and I was on a Zoom call with some buddies, and we were all kind of catching up. In the 5 seconds that she took her AirPods off and said, "What's that for?" What? Oh, is that so and so? What have they been up to? Like that? It ain't Bluey pancakes, man. But I guess I'm kind of diving into this plate because I got rocked by this friend who called me it's a kind of a crazy week for me personally. My mom passed away on the 28th, 4 years ago. So like this whole week is kind of a weird one for me. And I think about that and I'm like, it's like wanting to like slap you in a sense, like don't sell yourself short, bro.
Right.
Like don't ever, for all the guys that are out there that are like, got the burden of the world, on their shoulders, that are trying to figure out, are they right? Are they wrong? I got friends of mine who are gay and they don't have kids and they want to have kids and they see the struggle to be able, and they're good people, man. Yeah. Like, and they you want to talk about getting shit on by society.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a whole nother episode. I know, friends of mine who are single dads who like don't have, like they're doing just to hold on, like,
Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
like cut yourself some slack. You know what I'm saying? And like, that social media stuff, man, look.
Well, and I think that, again, like I said, like these are, I guess, phases and things that come and they go and they, and a lot of times, like, it's been, the last, week or two has been pretty chaotic around my house. Like,
noodle leg.
Yeah, I got one lady on a scooter and I got the other one who, she don't want you to forget she exists. That's the short one. They're both short, but the shorter of the two. And I'm like, man, and I think I was telling Kim before we started, tonight we kind of did an early dinner and whatnot before we came over here. And we were just sitting on Julia wanted to eat her dinner. And look, also too, if anybody figures out the freaking secret to getting your 3-year-old to eating what you cook, call every contact, email, call my mom, get in touch with me somehow because I'm fed up with cooking one thing. I told Julia tonight, I said, hey, look, check it out. This is what mommy and daddy are eating. And if you don't want to eat that, you can go hang out in your room and we'll eat dinner without you. I was not having it. And of course we fed her because, I'm publicly going to tell this story and I don't want anybody to show up at my doorstep, but she ate. But anyway, she wanted to have ice cream and sit on the floor in the living room because we have one of those digital picture frames on the thing in the kitchen and it swipes through pictures. And I guess we get in the living room and I went to sit in my chair and she goes, no, Daddy, you need to sit right here. Mommy needs to sit right here so she can put her foot up. I'm going to sit right here. And Ace, who's our dog, needs to sit right here. And I guess that was the exact arrangement that she saw in the picture and she wanted to do that again. And it's like, I didn't notice it at the time, but sitting here thinking about it, that's my Bluey pancakes, that's what matters to her is just getting to recreate that moment because for whatever reason she saw it and was like, this is cool, and so we ate the ice cream and she's hilarious. She's like, I'm still hungry. I'm like, okay, do you want me to make you a turkey sandwich? No, I don't think so. She wanted more ice cream and I'm like, man,
I feel miss the days when they discovered vegetables, like when they're just tearing up the carrot stuff, and the green beans, and you're just like, this is wonderful.
Dude, I was never really, well, I think my parents would probably disagree, but she's a picky eater. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like anything. She said, what are we having for dinner? And Jamie goes, Mommy cooked. I don't like it. She's like, well, you don't even know what we're having yet. But
wait till she's 15, bro.
Oh my God.
I'm trying, look. So I got Aubrey and I said, look, because I had made a gravy with some meatballs and stuff the night before, and I made some meatball po' boys, and I kind of did it up. I was fresh oregano. Yeah. Look, I don't know about all that. I mean, I've got a German last name, and I'm mostly Mick Irish. Well, so okay, fair enough. But look. I'm a fool in the kitchen when I want to be, dog. Mama taught me well. But anyways, and I was like, look, I got all these meatballs left. I was like, your mom said she's cool with leftovers. I'm just gonna, because you're not gonna go do my show, so I'm gonna do that. Is that okay with you? Mm-hmm. I'm asking her permission.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. Don't play me for a fool. I know you probably got something in the back of your head, well, I'm thinking that, whatever.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, that's cool. Well, all right. So I make what we have. you know, and then there's still some meatballs and gravy and sauce. And so, like, I take some noodles, I boil them, I throw them in the pot, give it a little action. I'm like, cool, we'll cook that down. And, you know, we got spaghetti and meatballs and take it for lunch, whatever. This broad comes in the kitchen. She starts looking at the spaghetti and meatballs. I'd done already made her po' boy. I'm like,
yeah.
So just wait till she's 15, dude. And then she hit me with the okie doke. She's like, well, I mean, I could still have the meatball po' boy like for after school tomorrow. And I'm like, see,
dude,
and now it's like maybe I taught you too good in negotiating skills or something.
I'm convinced that a woman is a woman from birth. It doesn't matter how many times they've gone around the sun. And I'm just like, man, like there's some stuff Julia does, and I'm just like, God definitely designed you differently than he designed me. And just her ability to figure out how to get and I'm at fault, you know? I mean, I don't think this is something that when she's 20, I'm going to be like, oh, I really screwed up by letting her choose this dinner and not that dinner, you know? But speaking kind of Aubrey, I think that this was also something that I kind of wanted to talk about that I found interesting, that I listened to the other day, that I think, you know, for Ben and Julia and where they're at right now, I think it's something that we can probably start doing, but I think particularly with Aubrey being a little bit older, I thought it was really cool. So, I was listening, Dr. Phil was on Joe Rogan one day last week, and I was listening to it, and you know,
were they chiefing?
Nah, they weren't chiefing.
I
was just listening. I don't know.
I understand. It's just like you understand. Like that's. Like I'm just right now. I have this image of like Joe Rogan
and Dr.
Phil. I'm sorry.
I didn't watch.
Well, you know, Joe.
No, I don't think any of that was going on. But I also only listened to it. But I don't know. And you know, whatever. I don't have an opinion really one way or another about Dr. Phil and what, you know, I mean, my knowledge about him is very little. I just liked what he said in this instance. But the point he was making was,
catch him outside.
How about that? Now he said, make it a point to talk to your kids about the things that don't matter. And his reasoning behind that was because if you create a habit and an open line of communication between your kids and you express interest in making them comfortable in talking to you about the things that don't matter, it's going to be way easier for them to come to you and talk about the things that do matter. And I think, I don't even know if I finished the thought earlier about the 3 of 4 people that voted, but the vote at 75% was they wanted to hear about being a dad in 2024. Maybe I finished that thought. Maybe I didn't. But I mean, in a world where I feel like today, I feel like growing up, my parents, my friends at school, my teachers were the ones that influenced me the most. And I feel like our kids, especially Ben and Julia, there's so many outside influences. And I just think sometimes about, well, damn, like how much of an impact am I going to have when all of these other media forms, all of these other people, influencers, music, whatever the case might be. And I think that point he made about opening the door for communication kind of gives me that leverage back as a parent.
There's this, you've seen The Breakfast Club?
Yeah, but kind of.
So and here's the reality, like, and it came out when I was only 5.
Yeah.
Okay. But having a sister who's 9 years older than me, there's a lot from truly the Gen X generation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I always say, like, 1980, I am the tail end of it, but I was influenced a lot by them. You know, I do think a lot like most Xers rather than your typical millennial. Like, I have a lot more influence there. But that movie, and I tell most people, I'm like, look, it's not just because it's some 80s Brat Pack, you know, kind of, you know, this John Hughes, like, seriously, if you want to see the seminal, like, dissertation for what I think the next counterculture, you know, when you go from the 60s and Woodstock and this, like, we're getting away from just Elvis shaking his hips.
Right.
We're, you know, We're Peter, Paul, and Mary. We're going and telling it on the mount. We're doing Million Man Marches. We're going to go do Woodstock. We're the Grateful Dead. We're Joni Mitchell. We're these people that act. You're talking about writers like Allen Ginsberg, and you're talking about Kerouac, and these people that are starting to influence culture. This is no longer the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
The Beatles have come over. Like life really. Well, the next big change you see, I mean, yeah, you said the disco and whatever. No, that was just cocaine in the 70s. Like, you get to, like, literally the late 70s into the 80s, and, like, this generation and those Woodstockers that survived, they become adults and parents.
Right.
And they have these kids, And there is this scene. And Ali Sheedy is sitting there, and she's talking to Emilio Estevez. Well, she's not really talking, but they get in this big beef or whatever. And Emilio Estevez like goes, and he's like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And she's like, "Not really," And he says, "Is it bad?" And she just says, "Yeah." And he's like, "Is it your parents?" She says, "Yeah." He says, "What is it?" And she says, "They ignore me." And it's like, it is so deep in my soul when I hear that, because that is, when I go back to it, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, that was a lot of my dad. That was a lot. Like, I looked for just silly time and I wanted to come talk and what I can, dude, I've had friends, coworkers, whatever. I'll walk into a room and you'd be talking and I'll just stand there silent.
Yeah.
Till they look at me and they're like, "What's up, dude?" And I'm like, "Just waiting for y'all to stop talking."
Yeah.
Because that was my dad.
Yeah.
Like, what? Don't interrupt me, boy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you? Excuse me. Say excuse me. Like, it was more imperative that I say excuse me than to tell you, like, the cloud looked like an elephant, and I really wanted to share that with you. You missed that because my manners,
right?
And not to say I don't want my kids to have manners, and I don't want my kids to, because I do think you got to play the game a little bit. I want them to be able to blend in society and learn how to operate and work in the machine. But that's so real.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, I think that silly talk and all that. I mean, that's one of the things with Aubrey. Way before Ben was even ever thought of, like, I told Courtney, I said, like, if we're going to do this, we're going to get married, we're going to have, like, here's this kid who's biologically not mine, but you're expecting me to be a part of the raising of her. I was like, here's how I think we should do it.
Right.
We don't ever lie to, like, she asks a question, we give it to her. And bro,
it's working so far, you think?
Yes. And I'll be able to better answer that in about 10 years.
That makes sense.
Because I don't expect her to tell us everything right now.
Yeah,
in
there's
fact,
that.
I don't want you to. You're in high school.
Right,
like, do
right,
whatever.
right.
Go sneak out of the play. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the point is like, when you
don't sneak out of the play again.
Well, it's like create self-awareness, right?
Yeah,
like be able to, like, because when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And you have to make that decision about getting in the car or not getting in the car.
Right.
When you have to make the decision on, like, I don't know, is he the right one or what? Whatever. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
So am I creating? But that comes from that open dialogue.
Yeah.
And you have to strap on your seatbelt because kids ain't got no cut on them.
Right.
Like, she's like 13 and she's asking some, like, gut punchers. She's like, so why did you do this? And you're like,
Yeah. Dude, it's funny though. I think, like, I mean, obviously, like, every kid is different. And I think, truthfully, one of the things I was really glad to hear that because no matter who it came from, like, it's just something that stuck with me and remind, because I know you've kind of spent very little time with Julia. Ken has spent some time with her, but, like, she said to me earlier, I wasn't playing games. I wasn't being a dickhead, but, like, I was trying to be a dad and do a dad thing at the moment. And she cut me off. I got like 4 words out. She cut me off and she says, "Wait, when you're done talking, can I talk?" And I was like, "Sure, but after I'm done talking." So, like, her communication skills and her like social awareness and her ability to like pick up on cues and things like that at 3 years old is scary and dangerous. And like, but I also, when people ask, or, we'll have friends, oh, she's so well spoken and she died, like, we also have always talked to her, like always, always. And my mom talks a lot. I don't have any problems talking. Jamie, since she's had Julia, something has happened to her speech, and I don't know if it's neurological or what it is, but she tends to slur words a lot, and I'm picking on her, but she'll know what I'm talking about if she hears this or when she hears this. But we've always talked to her. We've always like had lots of back and forth communication. My mom has been, my mom has done a lot in helping raise her and been there and been around and my mom taught autistic kids for a period of time, for a while. And not that Julia's autistic, but like what I'm saying is her patience level with children is so much better than mine. And so I watch my mom sit on the couch and Julia will give you 1,652 ums in between every word. And my mom will sit there and she will let her finish. And like, these are all kind of things that I'm hoping to try to pick up on and be better about, because I want the same thing. Like I know, obviously for you with Aubrey, it's much closer than it is for me with Julia, but I know it'll be here pretty damn quick. Like I want what every parent wants. I want you to call me and feel like, hey, Dad, I need you to come pick me up. And we don't have to talk about it. We can talk about it when you're ready to talk about it. I don't want to, but I want to get that phone call. Like I want to implement that level of trust and ability to communicate with me as her dad, and same for Jamie as her mom, to where, obviously I understand that things happen and trauma and accidents and all this kind of stuff happens, but like, if the choice is up to her, I want to know that we've done our part as best as we can to let her know that, like, yeah, we are your parents, but we also care about you enough to let you be who you are as a 16-year-old girl. And I think for us, it's starting with her as a 3-year-old girl, and it's hard because, like I talked about before, like I do want to, I'm on the phone, say, excuse me, or you see me and Mr. Karl talking, you can wait and say, excuse, and it's like, I do think that is important. And I do think that sets the standard for how she interacts with society as time goes on and she gets older and stuff. But I don't want that to like subconsciously create some kind of trauma where she feels like she's not allowed to speak when something is really important. Because right now it may be that the clouds look like elephants, and that's the most important freaking thing I could possibly tell my daddy in this moment. And in 15 years, it might be, hey, this person is overdosing, or hey, this person is about to drive drunk and they want me to get with them. And that's the most important thing I can tell my daddy. And I want him to pick up the phone, and I want him to be okay with what I'm about to tell him. And I don't know. I think, I'm not a psychologist or a Dr. Phil, but I think there's probably something to be said about it starting at 3, But yeah, man, I that's another thing, like, and something that I was thinking about that we could kind of talk about that I think is probably different as dads in 2024 that didn't exist as dads in 1980 or 1990. But there's so many things that and I may be an extreme example if I get really deep, but like am afraid of as a parent that my parents may or may not have had to be afraid of, or your parents may or may not have had to be afraid of, because of the way our world is and the way society is.
See, I don't think the fear has ever changed. I just think that the rules of the game have maybe changed,
Good point, yeah.
Because, dude, our parents' were totally afraid of this little thing on the floor that's, spit out these.
A vacuum?
No, a radio.
Oh.
And then, their parents, whatever, it's like in the TV and then the internet. And
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
To say that our kids, Aubrey included, are more influenced by than what we were, dude. I have this running joke. I always say, I said, all my news came from Kurt Loder. MTV News. Like, that's how, like, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, ESPN had really started to take off in the 90s.
Yeah.
all of my news, all of the information that was pertinent to me,
Yeah.
I knew exactly where to go to get it. It just wasn't in real time like it is now.
Yeah.
And this idea of like, oh man, you're absolutely correct. But just like Elvis shaking his hips on Ed Sullivan in 1950, oh my,
Yeah.
you just
yeah.
thought the world was going to melt,
Yeah.
and then these shaggy haired guys
yeah.
from across the pond. Oh my God, they don't even cut their hair, and
Man, that's crazy.
it's like we sit there and say that there's so many of these evils,
Yeah.
but like our parents and how many TV shows and first 48s or whatever you watch, where it's like the backstory is like unsolved mysteries, right? Little girl or the little boy riding their bike down the road and then they're never seen again, right? And this idea that it was just so much safer back in my day, and it's like, why am I watching then an unsolved mystery from back in your day? Of some kid going, it's like
that's a good point.
It's still always there.
Yeah,
it's self-aware. Google Chats. Courtney, Aubrey had a little chat with her friends, and like Courtney had the ability to see the chats if she wanted, and like whatever. It's just like a diary. It's just virtual now in a sense.
Yeah.
It's real time, and you don't want to go looking at it.
Yeah.
Since it's like a diary. She's talking with her little friend. She's like 10
Yeah.
at the time, and then all of a sudden, bitch and shit and little curse word, whatever, and then Pornhub is brought up. We got to have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
and we do, and we sit down and we talk, and we like make sure she understands. Like, we don't think like you're bad or you're deceitful or whatever. We don't even know that you're mischievous in the sense of being mischievous. It's you're 10 and you're like pushing the boundaries of like your childhood.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to, what's cool, you're starting to branch out. It's scary for us, but like we had this whole conversation. I was like, but when you start talking about, well, little Tommy and you say things like Pornhub, like, I don't know little Tommy. Little Tommy might be Big Al who's like 60
exactly.
and asking you now where you live and where do you go to school.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, and it got to this point where like I had to tell her, she started crying. And so I like, don't know if I did more harm, but it's kind of this story I tell, and she's like, but little whatever the kid's name was like, no, I go to school with him. And I was like, well, let me let you know about little Tommy. Tommy could burn in a bus fire for all I care. Like, I am responsible for you, and it's like the fear is never going to change.
Yeah. No,
it's never. Am I creating the self-awareness for you to know, like, this person's just like, when you get a phone call from somebody at 30 or 40 years old, and that phone call is like, oh my God, we missed you, yada, yada, yada. You're supposed to do this. And you're like, okay. And they're like, yeah, your name is this. Yes. And you live on this street. Yes. What's your social security? Oh no, I got to hang up.
Right.
Like,
right.
We know that.
Right.
Am I creating that in my kids?
Yeah.
Does Ben understand at a reasonable age, like somebody who ain't family or friends, who ain't in the circle of trust,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That they are, and they're just different. And I guess for me, like what I do think about is like the ease of access to these said dangers or these said fears or things like that. And I will say, like, I'm guilty, and I'll admit it. Like, I am just starting to, and it's still, because I am who I am, but I think that there's a level of awareness publicly that I have that may forever always be with me, and I don't think it's to a detriment at this point. For example, I'm one of those people that will not sit with his back to the door at a public restaurant. I'm one of those people that, like, when we go to the movie theater, I buy the tickets at the very top so I can see everything in front of me. Like, there's just certain stuff. It's not causing problems, so I'm not going to change it at this point. But there are other things that did start to, like, get a little bit kind of outlandish that, like, and I don't know if every parent goes through this or not, or if I'm just a special variety because of who I am. But, like the missing children stuff and the stories that, Jamie would read about kids getting taken in the parking lot at Target and all this kind of stuff. And like,
She does it right before you're going to bed too, huh?
Right before we're going to bed.
What the?
Right
What
before we're
is
going to
that
bed.
about?
Right before we're going to bed. Right before we're going somewhere, right before we're, and I say that things like that, and again, like, I think it's important to note that stuff does happen.
Mm-hmm.
However, not to the point where it keeps me from wanting to let my kid go to her grandmother's house, her grandparents' house. Not to the point where we're pulling out of my parents' house and it's dark outside and she's spending the night because it's spend the night and she's playing in the front yard with her two uncles, my brothers, and I'm like, hey, drive around the front just so I can check and make sure she's okay. And my wife has to be like, your brothers are out there. She's fine. They live in a nice neighborhood. Like, those are the kind of like fears and things that maybe it's a new parent thing. Maybe it's an immaturity thing, and maybe it's a combination of a bunch of things that my best friend, very close to me, he and I kind of like talk and joke somewhat about this a lot. Like, we could sit down and have a conversation for an hour easily about the things our brains do. And, and it's like, I have heard plenty of people say, when the second kid comes, that gets easier, and when this, like, I mean, dude, Julia's got a full mouth of teeth, 3.5 years old, and I still feel the need to be like, hey, take one bite and chew it first, please, before you shove more food in your mouth. Because she choked on one of those puffs, those little puff snacks when she was like 6 months old. It was the first one that she had ever eaten. I gave it to her. She shoved it in her mouth, and next thing you know, she's purple. And like, I stuck my finger in there to try to swipe it out, and it ended up pushing it further. And, they melt, but still, like, I've only been a dad for 6 months. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I had a dog choke one time, and I kind of kneed him in the stomach, and he coughed it up. But I'm not going to knee the baby. And like, these are I hope, and I think because it's gotten better maybe in the last year or so, and I hope maybe I'm not the only one that deals with this kind of thing. Maybe there's some other dads that do too. But I think, and I hope as time goes on, I don't allow those like societal external fears dictate how I parent and raise her and end up causing problems for her learning how to function on her own. You know what I mean? Like, 100%, dude, if I had $1 for every time I was called helicopter dad when she was really little, we wouldn't have to be asking for sponsorship on the podcast type thing. We could be, but it's hard. It's not for me. For me, it's hard. It's not easy.
I think it's difficult for anybody, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
I think if you have a kid and there isn't a sense of now being second.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe if you're qualified to have kids.
Yeah.
Because Aubrey, like I said, it's always been this tightrope and trying to figure out where I fit in her world and trying not to overstep that. But like, I will say as a step parent, like I like to always say, like, it's all the responsibility and none of the credit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just reality. Like, I am expected to do all these things to better her future. And like, in a lot of ways, I will probably catch more shit than her mom. And most certainly probably more than her dad, and I don't wish it on her dad. I'm just saying, like, That's just the way it is, and some days it sucks. Some days it really sucks. Some days it's like the worst because like, I'm going, bro, do you know, like, I've had 5 jobs in the last 5 years. When I left my dad's company, after I was working there and I left, I went to one place and worked there for a couple of years, went to another place, worked for a couple of years, went to another, then there was COVID, whatever, and I worked at another place, and then this last place I was at, like, and up until this last place, like, every one of them was like a step up, but a lot of it was like, I was so miserable. I was so unhappy. I had no time with my family. I had no time with my kid, with her, and then especially when Ben was born, that stuff is so precious to me, that time and that energy. So like, I try to always remember, like always, with her and with Ben, like, dude, like I'm trying to do everything I can so that you can navigate this world without me. You know what I'm saying? Because I got such limited time. And like with her, you know, the other Frank came over to the house last night and had some meatball po' boys, and we were out hanging out. I was walking the dog. He was with me. Courtney was helping Aubrey with some homework or whatever, and we were talking. And I was like, "Yeah, man, it's tough. Like, dude, she's gonna be 15 in like 3 days, and so at a minimum,
Happy birthday, Aubrey.
at a minimum, we have 3 years left with her.
Yeah.
You know,
You ever seen those things where they put, shout out to the social media influencer moms and dads who did this for us, but they put like the jars on the wall and they fill them with like marbles or not crayons are too big, but marbles or Skittles or something, and it's like the amount of days, you know, from the time you have a child to the time they turn 18, and like it's like disturbing putting it in that perspective when you see it as like Skittles or M&Ms or marbles or something, and it's like, you know, by the time they're 8 and the jars 0 through 7 are empty, and you see, it's like, holy crap, like if I take one of these marbles out every day, that's how much time.
oh, dude, yeah, and I guess I just, you know, I guess my point is like, you know, sometimes, and maybe it's just because that's what I'm picking up, at least from you, is like sometimes there's this feeling of like, you know, am I doing it right? Am I doing it good enough? You know, am I hurting them? Am I scarring them? Am I hindering them and all that? Because like I was like with Ben, I was always thinking like, well, you know, yeah, I mean, I had this experience with Aubrey, but like I didn't have Aubrey the first 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Like she was like 5 really, you know? So like I don't know what it's like for you to have your first fall.
Right.
I don't know what it's like. And, you know, so I've kind of had to be like, all right, I got to let you like get hurt. I have to let you like learn how to, you have to figure out the stove is hot. I mean, I can tell you, no, baby, the stove's hot. It's going to burn you, but you sure enough going to have to touch that stove because you're going to. Right. The question is have you enough self-awareness now that when I tell you the next thing's hot, that you go, oh, okay.
Oh, shit, he ain't lying.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to touch that. Last time I didn't listen and, you know, whatever. And so, you know, with Aubrey, it's like, yeah, dude, you know, she's 15 and a lot of my best stuff has already been thrown at you.
Yeah.
Here now it's like just trying to navigate like emotional, like hormones and adolescence. But, I don't know, man. Like, and that you can go into like the whole gentle parenting thing, you know, and
Let's talk about that.
You better strap in, son.
I wanna do something real quick. It's not gonna take very long, but I want to Google what gentle parenting actually is defined. So if you look it up, gentle parenting is an evidence-based approach to raising happy kids. 4 main elements: empathy, respect, understanding, and boundaries. Focuses on fostering the qualities you want in your child by being compassionate and enforcing consistent boundaries. And I think when you made a mention a while ago about it getting like taken out of context or misunderstood, misrepresented, misinterpreted. What do you mean by that? Just
so
curious.
All right. No, seriously, because this is a topic that like really like, because we're about to get a whole lot of different little elements here. This is going to kind of spread out a little bit.
Let's spread
stay with me, but like we live in the Bible Belt.
Right.
We live in the South.
Right.
We live in a male-dominated, waspy, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, idealistic society that is hellfire and brimstone, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
A woman serves
Yeah.
and obeys.
Yeah.
And like, if that's what does it for you, don't stop on my account.
Right.
But here's my experience. You know what I'm saying? a lot of the people in this part of the country, at least, that I am around a lot of times, when we start talking about kids and parenting, it starts to be very, gentle parenting, right? Like, you got to, their feelings and you got to work. And this idea, like, kind of like, giving you shit for saying, oh, I sit on the, it's like this all of a sudden, like this like, chauvinistic, like alpha, like, oh, you don't, you're just a punk, you're weak, you're whatever. And like, and I'll go ahead and say it. Half of these cats that say that to me, like, aren't even in their kids' lives. So like, if the shoe fits Cinderella, but like, dude, it really pisses me off because, you're talking to a kid who, and I'm just saying, like, I'm not here to say whether you should or shouldn't spank your kid. I've never laid one finger on either of my children, ever. And I don't plan ever to. Do I think that makes me right or wrong? No. But I can tell you, in my household, when something happens, we talk about it. See, I got spanked. I got a belt taken to me, sent to my room, and then I had to come out and figure out what happened. Nobody talked to me. There was never an explanation of what happened. And somebody was like, well, maybe that's what was wrong. Is they said, yeah, they should have explained why they hit me with a belt.
Right.
Was that what you're getting at? Like, gentle parenting. I'm not saying that we need 8th place trophies either.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, bro, like, kids need to learn what it's like to lose. Kids need to learn what it's like to have to put in work. To eat shit, you know? God knows I didn't. I got finished telling you for an hour 2 weeks ago how, like, I spent from this time to this time, like, having cleaned up my life for the most part, but still scared to death of the real world.
Right.
Because I did not have the emotional support and the emotional maturity that was probably needed for me to navigate an adult world. If you'd have kept me in, like, junior year of high school, freshman year of college, maybe, and just kept me there, I was gravy trained. But like, so we talk about gentle parenting, and sometimes, like, people get, like, really, around here, it's like, that's what's wrong with this generation. It's like, well, what was wrong with your generation when your parents were saying this about you?
And that's why I wanted to read it, because I'm guilty of 100% becoming a parent, hearing gentle parenting and not knowing what it meant, and assuming my interpretation, because I had never looked it up. I'm an experience-based person. I don't think you can talk about it unless you preface it with, this is my opinion. But like, if you don't have the experience, maybe get the experience first, and like, contempt prior to investigation type of shit. That's what I did. I didn't, and so I was under the impression that gentle parenting was like this idea of letting your kids get away with everything and anything, and I understand it to be totally different now. And like, we're navigating, I guess, figuring out what is the best way or the best combination of ways to discipline Julia. We've tried everything from spanking to spanking and talking to just talking to soap, apple cider, all the things that was done to me and done to Jamie, like, we've tried with her. And like, because she, like I kind of mentioned a few minutes ago, because she's the kind of kid that she is, like, she responds, I think right now, better to conversation, and like, she does respond better to, now, granted, she's a young female Harvey Specter, and she loves to negotiate and she loves to close the deal. So you got to watch the way you communicate with her and how much wiggle room you do give her as far as having the conversation about what she did wrong, why it was not okay, why she got sent to her room, or why, whatever the discipline, the action was. But I also, for a while, like, we did the whole 1, 2, 3 count to 3 thing. And like, she laughed, and like, I also, for us, like, I also think that there's some kind of, and maybe that's part of what this, being a dad, being a parent, what this whole journey is about, is figuring out, because like I said, coaching kids in baseball, I cannot coach little Johnny the same way I coach little Timmy. I can't, parent.
What made Phil Jackson so good?
Right. He knew, you respond little time. I had a kid that I coached a 14-year-old team, not going to spend too much time here, but I coached this 14-year-old team when I got out of the Marine Corps. And a handful of those kids I had coached back when they were like 9 and 10. I went to the Marine Corps, come back, whatever, and I coached them right before they all went to high school. So I took this as like, this is your final year before you, a lot of them were going to a very baseball heavy high school where 100 kids were going to try. I had one kid who in the middle of the game, I dragged him down the third baseline into left field and just wore him out because of his attitude. Then there's another kid who I have to wait till the game is over and go sit with him and talk the same way that I'm talking to you right now. And my job as your coach is to set you up for success in the best way possible and pull the best out of you. And is that not part of my job as a parent also, is to set you up for success and try to get the best out of you, or allow you to find out what your best is? And so like, yeah, it is. These 3 years have been a learning experience of what Julia responds to. And so like the 1, 2, 3 thing, like I also, Jamie and I as parents, I think any of these freaking gurus would agree with this. We have to be consistent, because she sniffs us out. She's like, yeah, you said that shit last time, homeboy, but you didn't do nothing about it. Stand on business, dog. And that's kind of, she don't say it like that, but that's what she's thinking. And so if I'm counting to 3, she's like 4, you know?
You ever watched a kid, like, especially like, and this is another thing, like I've had friends of mine, and it's just me. It's my house, right? You can do whatever you want at your house. But I've had friends like with their kids, and they're at my house, and their kid acts up or whatever, and they say, all right, let's go in the bathroom, and you hear them spanking them. And I've had them come out, and in front of their kid, I've said, don't ever do that at my house. Ever again. Don't.
Yeah.
Because I didn't come over to your house and bring your shit and bring my shit to your house. So don't do it at mine, because I don't need my kid screwed up by it.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. And I'm not, but my point is, like, you ever seen that kid who, like, when somebody's like, I'm going to go get the belt, and they are screaming, running, they're like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
That has been when I'm like, are you ready to go to your room? Because I'm putting him in his room in the dark, in his crib, and I'm like, and you got to go be alone.
Yeah.
And he cannot, it is overwhelming. And it's not that I don't want to punish him, but it's like, you need to cool down.
Yeah.
You need to relax.
Right.
And we've worked on this thing, and this is something that we do. And look, it's been kind of cool. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it takes consistency, but like, he's with it now. And I go, Ben, let's breathe. And he like,
it's funny, we're cut from the same cloth in some way, shape, or another, because we do lots of breathing.
And but like
meditation.
And we get to and like on the third one, he looks at me and I go, one more, and he goes,
yeah.
And I go, you want to hug it out? And he's like, yeah. And the whole thing is like to realize, because dude, time for them is not linear, man. No. It is so big and so like when you're like in a moment, like you have to be able to be like, we need to just, for this moment.
And that's like, Julia's got this thing where like, I can't stop crying. And it still at times drives me absolutely batshit crazy, because I'm like, yes, you can. And then I'm like, she can't. Like, she cannot right now. And that's where, so we, her room is mermaid themed. And when she started school this year, they have a calming corner in her classroom, and it's just like a little area of the room where there's like books and little like fidgety type activities and things like that. And this year in her class, boys, the boy to girl ratio, last year it was like 8 girls, 2 boys. This year it's like 5 or 6 boys and 5 or 6, you know, it's and boys are a little bit more rambunctious at that age. And so for her, it was really overwhelming. And she spent a lot of time in the calming corner the first couple of weeks of school. So we put one in her room. We put like the cute little drape it from the ceiling thing and a little seashell pillow. And she's got her little baskets with her thing. And like, dude, that maybe not for Jamie and I, as far as getting the result that we want in that moment, but for her and what she needs, that calming corner is a big deal. Like,
and so like, let's go back to this, like, let's reverse it for a second. And, you know, talking about like where we live, the kind of the alpha males that seem to be around here that, you know, you know, whatever. And just this old school ideology that doesn't seem to want to leave. But like you said, her school has a calming corner. And you know what I heard in my head? I wish I had a calming corner. I didn't get no calming corner. I got to go to work and I got to.
Yeah.
I want to look at those people and go, maybe you need one, bro.
Yeah, maybe you need it.
Maybe you need one. Like, who hurt you, dog?
Right. No,
you need a hug, bro, because I'm here for it, bro.
And look, that
just, I don't, and I'm going to get off this soapbox again, but it irritates the ever living shit out of me. Like, when I had a kid, I started looking at people like, bro, like your mama held you at one, like you were her baby at one. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at kids and you start realizing, like, man, it's like, why would we ever want to shit on anybody? In a sense, you know what I'm saying? Like, why not? Like, why can't we figure out what's the best way as a collective to grow together, to find a way to, because like, there's another line in The Breakfast Club, and it's kind of towards the end where like the mean principal is sitting there with the janitor dude, and they're kind of talking in the records room or whatever. And he's like, and it's the only time a character named Karl has ever been cool. Usually Karl's like a murderer or a rapist or something, but Karl the janitor, shout out to Karl. But he's sitting there and he's like, Paul Gleason, Vernon, the principal, and he's like, here's a thought that keeps me up at night, Karl. These kids are going to be running the country. Now, you think of this.
Yeah.
When you and me are old, you know what keeps me up at night? These are the kids that got to take care of me.
Yep.
And Karl says, I wouldn't count on it. Like, you keep treating, like, I want my kids to, like, want to be around me.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, me and my dad have had to work to cultivate our relationship. Right. So, like, I'm just...
Well, and yeah, I really do think that the quote unquote gentle parenting thing, the more when I read that, the more I think about what we do in our house. And like I said, look, if you had it figured out before you heard the first cries, hell yeah, I'm not him. I'm still working on it. And one of the best pieces of like advice or anything that anybody gave me, and I still think about when Julia was born. What do most people say when you got a baby? Oh, hold her while you can. Cherish these first few months. I had somebody tell me something so different than what everyone else was telling me. He said, I said to him, I said, she was a couple months old, 2-3 months old. I was like, yeah, man, I'm just trying to enjoy it while it lasts. He was like, no, dude, enjoy every moment, because every stage of her growth, every stage of her life, there's something that you're going to love. The newborn, the toddler, the elementary age, the teen, the preteen, there's something you're going to love.
Different kid, man.
It's a totally different, and I'm
looking at Ben, I'm like, I have a little boy.
Yeah.
Not a toddler.
Yeah, like, he's peeing on the potty. He's going to be standing next to you at a trough urinal at LSU game here soon. That's my dream. If I had a little boy, like, you go pee over there, I'm going to go pee over here. If you find a bush, I'll find a bush. Let's go. But that's probably why I have girls or a girl. But no, man, I do think like that it is a trial for us. It is a trial and error process. It is a combination of, here are two semi-adults in me and my wife who were raised certain ways, and we're taking those things and subconsciously implementing them into raising our child and realizing some of those things work, some of them don't. Then we're hearing our friends that are doing certain things, and some of them work and some of them don't. And then we're hearing, and so it is just this culmination in this collective, like, And I think for us, the best place for me, I'm not going to even really speak for Jamie, but I'm just going to talk about, for me, the best place that I could have gotten to was realizing that some days she wants Fruit Loops and some days she wants Cheerios. And some days the threat of, or not even the threat, but you ready to go to your room? Like, that works. And some days it's, nice try, Dad. What you got next? Bring out another weapon, because that one's not working, And but I do think that there's like this, especially around here, and I don't know what parents are like in any other part of the country, but I know, the idea of being a gentle parent, I think, gets misrepresented and misunderstood, and it immediately is associated with just being soft and letting your kid do whatever she wants. And I don't really think that that's what it's
And
talking
there's some
about.
things with schools that I think, I mean, look, I'm not saying I want kids bringing guns to school and all that, but like, man, it used to be we could get into a fight at school.
Yeah.
We didn't, it wasn't all this big hubbub.
Right.
Sometimes kids had to take a punch
Sometimes
in
you
the
gotta lock
nose.
them gym doors and get old.
Well, I mean, like, it's, some of this stuff,
man.
like, there are some things that we've gotten so soft and so worried about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and that's my thing too. And I know we're coming up on getting close to time here. And so I'll close by saying this, that maybe we move that way, maybe we don't, but I don't really know how gentle society is. I don't really know how gentle the real world is. I don't really know if Julia shows up late to work for 4 days in a row, if her boss is going to count to 3 before he gives her some type of disciplinary action. And so I think about that, and I think about, how can I raise this girl in a loving home, but also prepare her for what the world is, and give her something that she can go put out into a world that may not be so gentle.
Yeah, I mean, consistency,
Yeah. But anyway, I guess it's time to close. In wrapping up, I think we got a couple more late night episodes that we got to do, so
At least one.
bear with us, everybody, all 112.
Follow, subscribe, go to the YouTube channel, go to the link tree. If you go to @official doodads podcast, you'll see a link tree. You also go to the official doodads podcast YouTube channel, subscribe, follow, like, share, tell everybody, comment, what you like, what you don't like. If you don't like us, if you do like us, if there's something you want us to talk about, do that, please.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good week, dude. Love you.
Love you, brother.